Great. Well, welcome to the February Hawk presentation. I was just going to suggest that go ahead and mute your phones. That'll work. So we'll start over. I only got a sentence in, so that works. So, matter of fact, Daniel, you're like entirely too big for that spot right there. That'll work. All right. Very good. So welcome to the February 2025 Hawk presentation. Just a show of hands, there are a couple of new faces over here. How many folks have been to a Hawk presentation before? All right, so we've got a couple of new folks in the audience. Welcome. Glad that you got our invitation. You know, we've been part of the North Carolina Wildlife Federation for almost 20 years now. The chapter was the first one in North Carolina. Now we have nearly 20 chapters around the state. So if you're in the hankering for a good presentation, just go to NCWF, the North Carolina Wildlife Federation page, sign up, and you'll get on their mailing list of all the different presentations and events that go on around the state. Matter of fact, we have a Charlotte chapter, we have a Lake Norman chapter, we have a Marvin chapter, so there are a lot of chapters really very close to us if you'd like some more. You know, North Carolina Wildlife Federation is part of the National Wildlife Federation. It's been around a long time, and this program to certify your yard is quite honestly very simple. Food, water, shelter, and a place to raise your young. And the last little bit is try not to use too many chemicals in the yard. Make it sustainable. No use inviting butterflies just to have insecticide, kill them. And then getting a sign, which happens to be on sale this month because they're doing a new design for this sign. So you get a sign like this a whole lot cheaper, but the nice part about it is it's a wonderful way to really start the conversation with your neighbors. When they see that, it's like, well, what's that all about? It's like, well, glad you asked. And then you go ahead and bombard them with a whole bunch of information. But it's really simple. The idea is just simply being more conscious about not just aesthetics, but aesthetics as well as gardening for wildlife. All these little creatures could use our help, that's for sure. Longtime sponsor, Birdhouse on the Greenway. Always grateful for Carol helping us out and supporting us. If you know any other folks that want to be a sponsor for Hawk, please let them know to reach out to us. If you haven't seen our YouTube channel, a lot of our presentations, including this one, is going to be posted on our YouTube channel. If you didn't get a chance to see, James and I were just talking about spiders. He's not a huge fan of spiders, and he's in the woods a lot, and he comes across spider webs quite a bit. Nasty way to find a spider, whether it's walking through a web and all. But we had a phenomenal presenter, an entomologist from NC State last year, and the funny thing about it was as he showed all these really cute pictures of these spiders, he said, harmless. And he'd show another one, harmless, another one, harmless. And there were really two that we had to even remotely be concerned about. One, everybody knows, black widow. And again, you just don't encounter them very often. And they're not jumping and coming after you. And the second, you guys know what the other one that's venomous that you kind of have to be worried about, but they generally leave you alone? Right. And they're called recluse because they don't want to be anywhere near us. So they get themselves away. And what's interesting is one of the things he talked about was that he went and saw a home that had many of them in there and 0 bites reported. So they can live amongst us. So the rest of them are all harmless, so you don't have to worry about them at all. Anyway, fabulous and fantastic presentations on our YouTube channel, along with a whole bunch of other stuff. So if you get a chance, take a peek. A couple of things that we have coming up. Next month on the 8th, we have an invasive plant cleanup if you want to come and help us out. This is going to be part of Matthew's Cleanup Day. It's a Saturday. Our part's going to be at Squirrel Lake Park doing invasive plant cleanup. We've just about, after a bunch of years of diligently working at it, we just about have all of the wisteria gone, which is really amazing. You can go out there and still see some remnants that are literally as thick as my arm of vines that were 30, 40, 50 feet up the big trees over there. and the fight now is on the ground. And so we have small little sprouts that come out of the vines that are still in the ground. But all the trees at this point are nice and safe, but we want to eradicate it. If we leave it alone for another couple of years, it'll almost be back to where it was. I mean, it's just amazing. So we have the tiniest bit of kudzu left, which really amounts to almost no real danger at all. But it's just remarkable that you get rid of the kudzu, you get rid of the wisteria, and then a whole bunch of vinca shows up and takes over. So it's like you get rid of one dictator and another one kind of shows up. But at least vinca's just on the ground. It only gets maybe about 8 to 10 inches tall, so it's not going to be a danger to the woods over there. But come out and help us out, or just take a look at the Matthews website. There's going to be a whole bunch of other things going on as far as cleaning up, like cleaning up the streams and doing some other cleanup work. But rather you come join us, come clip some and dab some wisteria. Another thing, next month, our presentation is going to be here, but it's just going to be 1 week off. It's not going to be our first Tuesday of the month. It's going to be the second Tuesday of the month. It'll be March 11th, and it's red wolves. I don't know if you know, but North Carolina has a native wolf, and it is the red wolf. Very interesting. Most endangered canine in the world. And we have it right here in North Carolina. North Carolina Wildlife Federation has a program out on the coast to help bring these guys back. Really remarkable program. And so Katerina is going to talk about it and tell us all about it. Teach us about these beautiful creatures. All right, so we have Earth Day also coming up here in just a couple months. It's going to be April the 5th over at Squirrel Lake Park. I know a bunch of you have volunteered with us before. It's a whole lot of fun. So come and join us. And if you'd like to volunteer, we're going to have our Sign Up Genius going out here shortly. And if you know any organizations that are really environmental educators, they want to staff a booth, have them reach out to us, and be glad to have them be part of it. Okay, so tonight we're in for a treat. We have, and I'm going to do a pretty good job at his name, but if I get it wrong, James will let us know. So he's got a couple of too many consonants in a row here. So James Bjorneboe, James Bjorneboe is going to talk about mosquitoes. He's going to teach us all about the different kinds that we have here in the area. But his bio is so impressive that I need to pull it up to tell you about it. So he's been with Mecklenburg County for 19 years. He's with the environmental health side of things, so that's part of the health department. He's managed the mosquito control program here since 2009. He's a past president of the MVCA, which is the Mosquito and Vector Control Organization for the state. He's going to talk about not only the mosquitoes that we have here, but also how to control them and what services the county does and what services they don't do. And certainly what you guys can do, what we all can do without just clouding our whole neighborhood with a whole bunch of insecticides. So without further ado, James, if you want to bring your computer on over here, I'll hook it up to the projector. All right. We'll give you a rousing applause here before you even said anything. All right. Let's get this one over there. Oh, it's on that side. It's on this side. All right, I'll take this. It's a little wobbly, so just watch out for it.
Okay, I don't know what happened. Let's see if this works.
There you go, now go to it again.
Let's see.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, my presentation tonight's only 143 slides. And I have another one that's 68. But don't worry, I would not do that. I don't even want to do it to myself, so I'm not going to do that to y'all. But thank y'all for having me. So my name's James. I'm with Mecklenburg County. I've been there about 19 years. And I'm going to talk to y'all a little bit today about some mosquitoes, kind of what we have in the area species-wise. This is I'm going to skip through a lot of this because it's very boring. But I don't know. I give this talk about 3 or 4 times a year. So, and I give it to our interns. We hire interns in the summer to help us go out and survey our mosquito treatment sites, which I'll get into a little bit later. And so it's like an all-day thing, but I will not keep y'all here all night, that's for sure. So I'll talk about a little bit about the basics of mosquitoes, the larval and adult species we have here. I'm not going to talk about ticks and some of the diseases, mainly just like West Nile, lacrosse encephalitis, and like triple E. So mosquitoes go through a life cycle, a complete metamorphosis, where you have a female mosquito will lay eggs, it'll hatch out into a larval stage, and in that larval stage it molts 4 times, and each stage it gets a little bigger than the last. And after that 4th larval stage, it molts into a pupal stage, and then it comes out as adult. And the cycle happens over and over again. So mosquito eggs, depending on the species, come in different shapes and sizes or how they're laid. So you'll have either one at a time that can float on a surface, like this one at the bottom is from an Anopheles mosquito, which lays it in the water directly and it'll hatch. And then up here on the top left, you'll have an egg raft. And unless you know what you're looking for, these are very small. And there's probably hundreds of eggs in there. And they'll lay them on top of the water and they'll just sit there and float, and then they all drop out of the bottom. It's kind of cool. Then you'll have other ones that will lay them on the sides of containers like buckets or in leaf litter, damp soil waiting for them to hatch, all that good stuff. So generally if you're laying it in the water, it'll hatch within a couple days, depending on if you have the right environmental conditions like water temperature, air temperature, all that good stuff. If not, they can lay dormant for a while. So after they hatch out of the egg, they hatch out into these larvals, these different larvae. So you'll have different species kind of look different. You'll have, like on the bottom, there's a culex, and it has this little siphon that you see on the end that it uses to breathe, and they hang down. And different species, like Anopheles, don't have a siphon, and your other small, like tiger mosquito species, which I'll get into here in a minute, have a short, squatty siphon. So you'll see these in your buckets and ditches and containers and things like that. They wriggle around. And they generally will last in this stage from anywhere from a week to 2 weeks. Now, some species will last longer, like over a month in a larval stage. But some species will hatch out, and they'll be an adult within 5 days, just depending on the species. So like I said, they need this little siphon on the end to breathe, and then when you see them hang up in the water, that's kind of what they look like. And if you walk over a bucket or something, or a shadow walks over it, they'll, swim back down to the bottom to hide. And sometimes they're very small, and then sometimes you'll have mosquito larvae. Certain species can be over like almost an inch long, which is pretty crazy. So after the larval stages, it turns into a pupa. So in this stage, this is the last stage before it emerges into adults. And they're called tumblers, and you'll see, and they can't really swim very well. They'll just kind of tumble, and then they float back up to the surface. So they can't really dive as well, as you could say. And they use these little trumpets, as you see on the top, kind of right, to breathe. So once we get to this stage, then it will emerge into an adult. So this is what happens. You can see it coming out of the pupal casing, and generally they'll kind of sit on the water, or if they can get to the side of a container, they'll sit there. They're real teneral when they hatch out, kind of like a butterfly. They have to kind of harden up before they fly away. So generally, like I said, this takes about a week in the season, but it can last as long. This whole life cycle can last to be as short as 5 days, sometimes to 3-4 weeks even. So generally, only female mosquitoes bite people or any animal, lizards, frogs, birds, reptiles, you name it. They do that to get the blood so they can have protein to lay their eggs. Male mosquitoes do not bite people. They feed on like plant nectar and flowers to get enough sugar and all that stuff. Okay, so there's more than that now. There's more than 3,000 species of mosquitoes throughout the world. and about 176, 200 in the United States, and about 60 in North Carolina. There's around 20 mosquito species we find commonly in North Carolina and in Mecklenburg County. Well, there's about 20 mosquitoes we find commonly in Mecklenburg County. Some I find more than others, as you might imagine. Let's see. Okay. So, we have about 23 species of Aedes mosquitoes in North Carolina. This is a genera. And about 10 species of Culex, and about 11 species of Anopheles. But some of these species haven't been seen since like the 40s or 50s. I don't know. 8 species of Serophora, which are big, nasty mosquitoes, which I'll get to. And these other smaller genera, there's about 9 species. Okay, so we'll talk about Aedes real quick. Aedes are very short, squatty siphons, as you can see. They're very serpentine. If you ever see them moving in a bucket, they have a very graceful movement. I don't know if you can call mosquito larvae graceful, but it's true. Yeah, so they're free swimming. They're not connected to anything. They have a very pointed abdomen. I don't know how close y'all look at them, but they do. And a lot of times they have banding. So they live in a wide range of habitats. Certain species of Aedes will prefer certain habitats over other species of Aedes, like tires, woodland pools. You'll have some that live in ditches. You'll have some in South America, like Aedes aegypti, that only will breed and they can complete their whole life cycle without leaving a house, because people leave water around and things like that. So pretty cool. Most Aedes are active. Some Aedes are active during the day, especially the ones that are going to impact y'all the most, like Aedes albopictus, which is the #1 biting pest we have in the state. It is the bane of my existence, and it's kind of boring because it's the only mosquito species I see, pretty much, probably 95% of the time. It's a domestic species, which means it's kind of around the house. It breeds in artificial containers, like buckets, bird baths, kids' toys, tires, tarps, gutters. I've seen them breed in like the top of like a bottle cap. I've seen them breed in like a plastic chip bag that holds water. They're crazy. I've even seen them breed in like magnolia leaves that are turned upside down. It's a daytime active mosquito, which is kind of a little weird. It is very persistent. It doesn't take no for an answer. It generally will bite you kind of below your knees. So if you're out there and you see a bunch of mosquitoes around your legs, you know, I bet my paycheck it's the tiger mosquito, Aedes albopictus. It likes that daytime. So that's why most people deal with this more than anything else, because it's what they see the most when they get home. There's a larvae, but this is what it looks like. If you see it, Asian tiger mosquito, Aedes albopictus, have this white line down the thorax. That's what albopictus means, white line. It's a very pretty mosquito. It's a black and white tuxedo. But that's generally what you see. And does this look familiar to anyone?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. It's all I deal with. And the problem with it is it's hard to control because it likes, you know, things you have in your backyard. And Charlotte has got a lot of backyards, very urban, suburban. So, yeah, it's a never-ending battle. I'm going to skip this one. Triceriatus, this is another one. This is the eastern treehole mosquito. It's the most widely distributed. And let me back up. Aedes albopictus really isn't a big disease concern. It's just more of a nuisance. It is awful. Like I went to a tire yard last summer off the plaza, and it made me reconsider my line of work. I probably had 300, 400 on me a minute at a time. Yeah, I know. They don't pay me enough. I have one. Yeah, I keep bees, so yeah. But anyway, this species of mosquito is not really very, I mean, we find it, it's not very common, but it has a pretty big arboviral footprint in the state. It does transmit a lot of disease like lacrosse encephalitis. So it's a tree hole mosquito. It'll breed in tree holes that are, you know, this close to the ground, like way up in the air, you know, 30, 40 feet in the air. It'll also lay its eggs in buckets and containers. And what they do, they just lay their eggs on the side of the bucket above the water line. Then when it rains or whatever, it fills up, they'll hatch. So they're pretty cool. I don't really see them a whole lot. I don't really catch them a whole lot in traps. But generally, these are more active in the early morning and evening, whereas your tiger mosquitoes are going to be more active during the day. I've been bitten by them before, but not in these numbers. I mean, you know, like one. So they're not too crazy. That's what it looks like. You can't really see it, but there is some banding kind of up here on these little joints. And I think there's generally some down here towards the tip. But anyway, these are the best pictures. Now, while we're on the tree hole and container species, there's one more container species we had that we come in contact fairly often. It's called Aedes japonicus, or the Asian bush mosquito. It's fairly new to the United States. We first collected it here in Charlotte in 2003 in a bird bath. It came from Japan and Korea. It breeds in rock pools, which we consider kind of a container, tree holes and things like that. So they're very kind of timid. They're kind of floaty. I don't know if that makes sense, but they're just kind of, they almost like, you know, if I'm going to smack them, they already know, they'll like float away. But like tiger mosquitoes don't care. There are just so many of them. But, and I found that species, the first one in North Carolina, so. Little did you know you're with us in the presence of a celebrity. So, but anyway, it's a very pretty mosquito. It has this lyre-shaped patterning on its back. It's golden. It's very, very distinctive. And again, it has this banding here, here, and here. So, okay, I'm gonna skip that one. That's not important. No, this is one I only found it once, but it's very beautiful. It's Volus pallens. It's like yellow. It's like banana yellow. I've only found it once, but anyway. Okay, so we'll talk about Culex. Culex species are very boring, I think. They're all look the same under a microscope. They're very hard to tell apart, and they do, however, play a big role in disease transmission, especially the top-wing Culex pipiens. But the larval differences between Culex and your Aedes species are easily, you can tell them apart fairly easily by the length of the siphon, which you see up top was very long and slender. And if you have mosquito larvae that are Culex, they're very herky-jerky in their movement. They're not that graceful serpentine movement that you'll find in your Aedes species. Not worried about that. They all look the same. And the only difference between these are mainly active at night, where your Aedes species, you'll mainly find them active in the day, morning, and in the evening. These will mainly fly at night. So, this is a pretty wide-ranging species where all these Aedes species I mentioned and all the other ones I didn't mention before will feed on people. These will feed on people. They'll feed on, we just have some species that feed on birds, and we have some species that are just feeding on frogs and reptiles and amphibians and all that good stuff. So, but the main one we're concerned about is this one, Culex pipiens. It's a complex of mosquitoes, which is a hybrid of the northern house mosquito, which is Culex pipiens, and the southern house mosquito, which is Culex kincafaciatus, which is the southern house mosquito. And you'll see I have a map where they overlap, kind of right in North Carolina. So the problem with Culex pipiens is you find it in every habitat. You'll find it in buckets, you'll find it in containers, fish ponds, like ornamental fish ponds that don't have fish, and ditches, low areas. I find it everywhere. It's the number one mosquito species that I find in the larval state. It will bite at night, like I said, and they overwinter in very like cryptic places, kind of like under like a deck or in like a tree hole rot or something like that. I've seen them like in buildings or sheds that aren't really sealed off well. I find it year round, and it's kind of a little pest for us, to be honest. So yeah, here's a map. You can kind of see the northern house mosquito, the range here, and the southern here. You can kind of see where it kind of meets. So we probably definitely have a hybridization of the two species. They're very similar. But this is the main species of West Nile, or mosquito that keeps West Nile going in birds, especially in Mecklenburg County. Long siphon. And if y'all have any questions, please feel free to ask me.
What county did you say? Especially in
Mecklenburg County, yeah. But all Culex species kind of look like this. We call them LBMs, little brown mosquitoes. And yeah, I mean, I'll be like counting like scales on wings right here to identify them, and I don't like doing it, to be honest. It's frustrating after about 2 hours of it. You're like, get me out of here. Okay, Restuans, this is another one. It's very similar to Culex pipiens, where it'll breed everywhere. Buckets, containers, natural sources of water, all that good stuff. Doesn't really bite as much as pipiens, but it still bites. But it can transmit disease, but we don't really find a whole lot of positive samples in adult Culex Restuans when we send them all for testing throughout the state. Long siphon. There it is again. Little brown mosquito. Half the time, all these spots aren't even on there. They rub off. These scales are like butterfly wing, like scales on a butterfly wing. So they get rubbed off, and you can't even identify them, and you just throw them away. I'm not doing that one. Nope. This is the one, Culex territans, that feeds on frogs. And I don't know if you can see on that frog, it has like, 4 or 5 mosquitoes feeding on it. I find these all over the place, but they don't bite humans. I'll find them in like abandoned koi ponds and things like that, or these fountains that people have in their yard that don't work or haven't worked in years, or I'll find them in like low areas of ditches. So it's pretty common. Don't bite people, but I always like finding them. Yes.
You mentioned that several of these slides, only the females are biters.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Males don't bite.
No. Yeah, because they need that blood to get the protein for their eggs, so they can lay their eggs. So yeah. But yeah, long siphon, little brown mosquito. Pretty boring genus, if I'm being honest, to find. I'm not gonna do that one. I got really excited about that one for some reason. So I will talk about Anopheles a little bit. Anopheles larvae in mosquitoes are a little different than really your Aedes and your Culex genus species. This is a larval state right here. They don't have a siphon they used to breathe. They have these little hairs on their back that look like palms. They're called palmate setae, and they just kind of sit horizontal with the water surface, and they use those to breathe. Generally, you'll find these in like ditches, and low areas and things like that. So this is, you don't really find these around the house as much. And this is the mosquito species responsible for malaria. And the adult mosquitoes are a little different. Again, this is me being a mosquito nerd. They have these long palps here, so it looks like they have a very thick proboscis right here. So that's easy to tell when they're flying.
What is the scutellum?
Scutellum. The rounded scutellum would be like right. It would be like right here. Oh, I have a whole ID key. I'll let you have it. I have so many. You could read it. It'll put you to sleep right away. I'll tell you what.
Place on the back.
Yeah, it's right below the thorax. There's this little part underneath called the scutum or scutellum. Yeah. So this is the type of environment we generally see Anopheles larvae in. They generally attack at night. They're not really too much of a public health concern. We don't have malaria here or any locally acquired cases of malaria. But generally you'll see them, they're the nice neon green color. They're kind of cool. And you'll see them, you know, because they're eating that algae and things like that. And all the adults all kind of look like this. They have these nice patterns on their wings, so they're easy to tell apart. And they just look different with all that banding and all that stuff. So, okay, I'm not going to go through these. We don't have crucians. But anyway, there's this, you can kind of see these palmate hairs they have right here. That's what they use to breathe when they just suck up to the surface of the water.
As far as size goes, are these bigger than the other species?
No, I'll get to those. These are all about the same size, maybe a quarter of an inch. Okay, here's some big ones. None of these, all these are just horrible biters. Like, you think you have it bad, and wait till you get into some of these. The good news is with this genus called Saurophora is they're not really a disease vector. They're just pretty bad nuisance. So they're free-swimming larvae where you have a bulbous siphon, as you can kind of see on that one. They're very quick developing. They're very chunky, as you can kind of see. It looks kind of thicker, has some weight behind it, so to speak. They can fly a long ways, where most of these other species, like your Aedes species, aren't going to have to travel far to find a place to lay their eggs. You know, 'cause most everyone has buckets of water and all that good stuff in their backyard. So yeah, they're fun. But generally, like this is what they'll be like on you. I don't even know if these are Saurophora species, but that's what it looks like. You'll just sit still in like a swampy low area, and it's like you need a blood transfusion when you get out. They are nasty biters, and they have a quick developmental rate. They'll hatch out when the conditions are right to, 5 days. They like woodland pools and all that stuff, ma'am.
On the hat, are they attracted to the color, or what are they?
Yeah, generally I think they're attracted to darker colors. They're really attracted to the CO2 that you're exhaling when you breathe. So, like we have, we don't have any CO2 trap. Well, I guess we do. We set some traps with dry ice, and they'll just come in. But there's some will have a tank of CO2, connect it, and then it'll set it out overnight, and it'll suck them in. But yeah, they're attracted to you. They can see you if you're out there. I mean, not like, across a mile or something, but when you're out there breathing, and they can pick up on your body heat, and they can smell you, for lack of a better word. Yeah. So, just don't breathe when you're outside, and you'll be fine. Yep.
Maybe you'll get to this later, but why are some people more?
I don't know if I necessarily believe that. I mean, I don't know. So, I mean, I think it's how long, like, when I go outside, when I want to work, I don't wear shorts. I don't give them places to bite. And it could be like some of the things you use, like if you're using things with like botanicals in there, they might be attracted to that. So, I mean, I don't know. I've heard it all the time.
Yeah, well, we can be outside and I get 10 bites and he doesn't even.
Yeah, it's because you have the sweet blood. That's what I hear all the time.
Well, how do I get rid of that?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not answering that question. But yeah, so they have very iridescent mosquito too. You can see how shaggy their legs are. They're very pretty. I don't know. I think they are. But like I said, I'm not normal. This is another species, big chunky larva, big chunky mosquito. Okay, so these are two big species right here, Ciliata and Howardi. Big mosquitoes, big larvae. And I don't know if you can tell, so these are larvae that are probably about like that when they're fully developed, about half inch. And the cool thing about these larvae is they kind of look like old Hoover vacuum going through the water, and they're very cannibalistic towards mosquito larvae. And if you kind of see here in this one, this big honker right here is eating the smaller larvae. So it's pretty cool. Sometimes we'll find them and we'll bring them back to our office and we'll put them in a bowl or a little hatch jar and feed them for blood sport. We're ruthless down there. We gamble on it, you know, take bets. Yeah. But it is cool.
In the government center?
Huh?
I said, is your office in the government center?
No, I lived, well,
Because I work in the government center. I was like, I'm not going anywhere near you.
no. You know where like the fleet building is down there near the music factory? Where you
Yeah.
drive? I'm at the little rickety building next to it. Spare no expense. But anyway, that's where we bet on mosquito fighting and things like that. So bring your wallet if you want to come down. So, but these also hatch out into big mosquitoes. So these are huge. I mean, that's like that big. Like, yeah. So, I mean, they're like probably like that big
Do they
around.
bite?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. These will bite through your shirt.
I've never seen one of those.
Yeah, oh, don't believe me. They're out. I don't see them a whole lot, but I mean, like you see it flying in front of you, you're like, oh my lord, get me out of here. So, but that's what they kind of look like. They're big and chunky. Okay, I'm not going to go through these. Here's another big one. Toxopharynchites is a tree hole container breeding species of mosquito. It is huge. I mean, it looks like some medieval war. I don't know. It has all these plates and like spikes on it. It's pretty cool, but it gets pretty big too. But the funny thing about this is, while it's in its larval state, it's cannibalistic, meaning it'll eat mosquito larvae and all that stuff. It'll tear them up. I've seen them eat little tadpoles before. But something happens in its pupal stage where it has a change of heart, and it hatches out into this adult, which is the biggest mosquito in the state, but the female doesn't take blood. None of them take blood. They don't bite people. They don't bite anything. I guess it can get enough protein or whatever from the plant nectar and sugars that it eats, but it goes from cold-blooded killer to pacifist. And this is like in the span of like 3-4 weeks. So, but they're always pretty cool to find. And we always hatch them out and let them go. After our blood sport, of course. Okay. So I'll tell a little bit about West Nile. This is an arthropod-borne disease from mosquitoes. They first came in the United States back in 1999. And since then, it's really kind of spread throughout the United States. So this is why, we have a lot of issues with mosquito-borne disease here in Mecklenburg, or North Carolina, really the U.S. This is the number one arboviral disease we have. So,
Is there any research being done to develop vaccines to this?
No. I think there's horse
Is it too
vaccines.
rare?
I think so. I mean, I would think, yeah. I would think so. I mean, if you're only getting, I think there's only 26 cases that are confirmed in North Carolina this year. But I think you can get it, I think horses have a vaccine for it. I'm not sure. But yeah, so most people get it through the bite of an infected mosquito. You can get it through like a blood transfusion. People that donate blood, they'll screen it obviously now, but in the past you can get it that way. It's mainly transferred through birds. So Culex pipiens, which is this little brown mosquito that I talked about earlier, transfers that, will bite a bird, then that has the virus, and then it transfers it to you. So that's how you get it. Normally, if I have West Nile, I can't transmit it to any of you. So that's good. So humans are what they call a dead-end host. And a lot of times, there's a transmission cycle right there. Horses will get it too all the time. I think maybe last year, 2023 or 2022, I think a horse in Union County got West Nile and died. I can't remember.
The mosquito bites and birds have to go under the feathers, or does it just submit to the arm?
Yeah, it can, or it can get like, kind of like around the eye. So where that, I mean, they're crafty. They'll get in there around like the legs, scaly part of the legs. I don't know what that's called. So the symptoms for West Nile are pretty common. You'll have joint pain, rash, malaise, you'll be very tired, vomiting, diarrhea. But the good news is most people that get West Nile don't show symptoms. And about, I don't know, 1 in 4, 1 in 5 that do get symptoms, they're very mild. But 10% of that 1 to, or 10 to 20% will get very severe symptoms where you'll require hospitalization, you'll get inflammation of the brain stem, all that good stuff. And it's pretty nasty stuff. And if we get to that stage where you have that severe infection, about 10% of those people will die from it. And also, people over 50 are at greater risk. I'm not going to go through that. Oh, crap. So, yeah, but there's no treatments or medicines. They just treat the symptoms. And that's the case, as you know, with most viruses for mosquitoes. People with milder symptoms typically recover quicker, but you might have symptoms that lag on for a few weeks. Ma'am?
You said that it goes into the birds, or they bite the birds. What sort of symptoms? Does it kill the bird?
Oh yeah, they'll fall out. Yeah, back in 2003, I was an intern. We used to have. That's when West Nile was at its kind of the beginning, and it was actually I have it right here. Let's see if it shows up. Okay, so yeah, generally, like it'll peak. I'm sorry, what was your question again? I'm so sorry.
I was just wondering if the bird dies.
Oh yeah, it'll die. But yeah, back in 2003 when I was an intern, we had a dead bird hotline, a dedicated phone line. People would call in. And we had so many boxes, I guess, from the state lab of like styrofoam coolers. I mean, they were up against the wall. I'm sure it was a safety violation, but there were so many in there. We would get calls all the time. We would go pick up a bird, and we normally would pick up, corvids like, blue jays, robins, bigger birds, birds of prey. But we would get calls, like I was telling him about, like a baby robin that fell out of the nest. We go out, I'm like, all right. Yeah. So we had a freezer full of dead birds. It was awful.
What about the danger of picking up a bird that you found dead? Is it on the outside, or how do you get it from a bird?
Well, how would you get West Nile from a bird?
Yeah,
The mosquito would bite the bird.
I know, but then how do you get it if
The
you're...
mosquito bites you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a bridge vector. So yeah, but we would I think I haven't done it. We would just pick up birds that were still relatively fresh. We would check the eyes to make sure they were, I don't want some partially decomposed. They gave us gloves, we put it in a bag, and then put it in the truck, and drive around with it all day, then throw it in the freezer. It was wild.
Were you guys testing them, or?
We would send them off. They would send them off to the state lab. I wouldn't test them though. We don't have that type of facility. So as you can see, how did this not work? Oh well.
Cooperate.
Huh?
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to cooperate. I think you might have to open up a Chrome browser or something like that.
I'm in a Chrome browser. Let's see. Well, anyway, this is not cooperating. That's fine. I can kind of go over it, but West Nile kind of goes through ebbs and flows over the years. You'll have a lot of cases one year, then more cases. You'll have less cases year after year. And this year we've had about 26 in North Carolina, and I think we had maybe less than 15 last year, if I'm not mistaken. And generally, since West Nile is transmitted through birds, a lot of times you'll see cases or incidence rate, which is per number of people, per 100,000 people. It's very high through, you follow bird migration through like the Great Plains, the Dakotas, and like that, you'll see a higher incidence rate. Not so much numbers, but the incidence rate will be higher, which is interesting. So,
Do you know the numbers for Mecklenburg County?
I think we had like, I don't think some of them got confirmed or they didn't meet case criteria. I think we had probably about 8 or 10, which is a lot.
How many?
8 or 10, somewhere in there, maybe 11. I don't know. But we hear about one, it's like, all right, we have a potential case, and then you don't hear about it. Because it's like, oh, it's something else. Or like, oh, this person doesn't live here. And generally they do that by case of residence. So, but generally, like I said, West Nile virus is for, it mainly affects the older subset of people. Most people you see have this are over 50, 55, in their 60s and things like that. So that's why it's important to be mindful and things like that. What you're doing when you're outside.
The bird shows sign of infection. If you find a bird walking on the sidewalk, could you tell that it's sickening?
I wouldn't think so, no. But that, I mean, like I said, we haven't collected birds in years. Now, what we did used to do is, before my time, they do have like sentinel chicken flocks, which you can, it's like a chicken coop. And you have chickens, and we would just keep them out back, and you'd get them, you'd take them out, you'd not slam them down, and then you would draw their blood, and then you'd ship it off, and then it would do a whole thing like that. And let's see. Huh? I might. Huh? Yeah. I don't know what's going on with it.
So you don't collect birds anymore?
No. Don't call me about birds. No. Well, I think mainly now because it's West Nile's considered endemic, like it's going to be here. We don't, I mean, there's no point. There we go.
So are there native mosquitoes?
Yeah.
Like you were saying
Yeah, so
the
your
tiger
QX.
mosquitoes or the Asian mosquitoes.
Yeah, there's some tons. All the ones that I pretty much talked about, except for the tiger mosquito and the eastern bush mosquito, are native.
Okay.
And in North Carolina, at least.
There, you can pick a slide where you want
Let's
to.
see. But yeah, there's some that, like I said, haven't
You
been
end up
seen
right
since like the 50s, and they'll still have them listed. I mean, they used to have a lot of guys from the state that go out there and like weeks in the woods looking for mosquito larvae high up in treetops and things like that. That's not for me. I'll stay here. So now I'll talk about lacrosse encephalitis. Lacrosse encephalitis is the probably most prevalent disease in the western part of the state for sure. And the differences with this is where you'll have West Nile virus affecting the older set of people. Lacrosse infects very young people. Most of these people will be kids like under 18 years of age. So this comes from the tree hole mosquito that I talked about earlier. It's very common in Buncombe County, Jackson, like Swain. Good Lord, I should know all these. Graham, Haywood, all that. You'll find them out where you have a lot of trees. Makes sense, right? Again, it doesn't take a lot for the symptoms to show up. You'll see the same symptoms like malaise, fever, things like that. The only difference is this comes from, it'll be amplified, the virus will be amplified in like ground squirrels and chipmunks instead of birds. But again, once I have lacrosse, I can't give it to you, you can't give it to me, we're dead in hosts. It'll also kind of, if it gets to that point where you have a severe infection, it will require hospitalization. People have died from this, young kids. And they've actually gone back and done studies where they'll have someone that has lacrosse. They'll find all this stuff in the yard, buckets, containers where these mosquitoes are breeding, and they had the family move out after one of their kids had lacrosse. Years later, another family moved in, they got lacrosse, same yard, same problem. And that was up in, I think, Buncombe County. Okay, that's not going to work. So then I'll talk quickly about triple E. This Eastern equine encephalitis, very rare. The difference with this is you'll have all the same symptoms. You'll have malaise, fever, rash, brain swelling, encephalitis, all that good stuff. The problem with this is it has a mortality rate of about 33%. So 1 in 3 people that contract this die. The good news is it doesn't really, we don't really have it here in people. We don't have it in horses. I think maybe 2 years ago, I don't know if it was ever confirmed, but I think maybe somebody in Catawba County got this. But a lot of these cases are up in like Massachusetts and Pennsylvania and things like that. So, disease prevention, what can we do? I always recommend people use insect repellents when they go outside, like DEET, picaridin, oil of lemon eucalyptus. I always tell people to wear long sleeves and long pants when they're going to be outside. And I always tell people to do, if they're going to do yard work, to do it in the middle of the day. And I get a lot of eye rolls because it's 98 degrees. And I also tell them to tuck their pants into their socks, do their yard work, the hottest part of the day, long sleeve, and wear DEET. And people don't want to do that. I don't blame them. And I always tell them to take extra precautions during peak mosquito biting activity, which would be like in the morning and in the afternoon. So.
That also would help with ticks as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, with ticks you can kind of avoid. I mean, they don't really come to you. I always tell people to repair screens on their windows, even though we have air conditioning now. I'm sure most people down here are using that. And I also tell people to remove standing water from their property. That's the biggest thing you can do. I always recommend with repellents, you use anything that's registered with the EPA. And I always recommend people to use the appropriate amount. More does not always mean more protection. Use less is more for most of these places or most of these products. Always apply to the label. Only apply to exposed skin or clothing. Don't apply over cuts or wounds. Don't spray it in your mouth. I don't know why that's in there. I'm sure it's in there for a reason,
Someone needs to hear it.
Yeah. It doesn't.
There's a lot of different, if you go into Whole Foods or whatever, they have a whole bunch of sort of more natural mosquito ones. They smell great. Are they effective at all?
I don't know. It kind of depends. I always use DEET. I always recommend that because it's been around for, 80 years, and there's probably millions of applications a day.
It's been around longer.
Yeah.
I wore it in Alaska, and usually after 3 weeks, I didn't have to put it on anymore.
Yeah.
100% DEET.
Oh, good Lord. Okay. Wow. Yeah, I wouldn't think so. That's a lot.
There's clip-on dragonflies that people wear where, like, think of those that on your hat has a dragonfly on a wire that looks like it's flying above your head, and apparently
What?
small.
I have never heard of that in my life.
It's on Shark Tank. And apparently it works really well. I was wondering if you'd ever use that.
Oh, I've never even heard of it. But I'll do that now. I'll just ring on people's doors and they're like, what the hell's wrong with this guy? Yeah, I don't know. I'll look at that. I'll try. I'll make my interns try that out this summer. Get out there. Don't come back.
Go into that tire center that you showed.
Oh, that tire center. That one. That was not in Mecklenburg County. That was somewhere else. If that was in Mecklenburg County, no.
What about certain birds? I don't know if I'm jumping ahead, but are they, do most birds eat mosquitoes? Are there certain birds?
Well, you got to think a bird is a pretty big creature compared to mosquitoes. It's kind of like when they have bats. Are they really going to be that effective at controlling mosquitoes when a mosquito is going to provide so much nutritional value when they could, I don't think that this is going to make a huge difference.
So really not,
I mean, they're still good to have around, obviously. You can also use permethrin, which is another repellent. This is good for ticks as well. This is something you can apply to your clothing. They make permethrin clothing that's already treated with permethrin, like camping gear, bed nets, tents, and things like that. And that works pretty good, and it's still effective after several washings. I haven't seen any in years. I'll be honest, I haven't really looked for any in years either. And
It
again,
went from 8 times you could wash it to 6 on my most recent stuff.
okay.
That I spray on my clothes.
Okay, well that's good to know. Yeah, I haven't looked for it in a while.
You just have to remember, okay, how many times do I wash this?
Yeah. Well, when you start getting bid,
I always got it at REI.
yeah, probably.
Yes, you can. It's
Yeah.
more expensive than it does.
Okay. All right, now I'm just going to talk about kind of what we do. Did I mess it up again?
Yeah, would you hit that, jumped out of it?
I closed it out completely.
Oh, that'll do it.
That's
There
pretty
is a
much it.
button, not in this slide.
So you're
It's,
probably gonna get to this, but I have a question
Sure.
about preventing mosquitoes.
Mm-hmm.
I work really hard to not have standing water,
That's it,
buckets,
yeah.
flower pots, that kind of thing.
Right.
But you also want to leaves and ground cover for other animals.
Well,
Like I was just doing some yard work this weekend, and like the moisture under my leaves is really significant.
yeah.
And I'm sure that's a great environment for mosquitoes, but I don't want to spray because I have a pollinator garden.
Okay.
So do you have any tips for,
Yeah, the problem, I assume you live in a neighborhood.
yeah, and my neighbors spray, so I try to make
Oh,
my
oh.
yard like a little
Yeah.
haven.
It's tricky. I
It
mean,
is tricky. And I am a mosquito magnet, like I can be outside for a minute and get 30 bites, so I need to put 100% DEET on.
yeah, or,
Yeah, or
yeah.
the other I forget.
Permethrin?
Yeah.
On your clothes.
Yeah.
And anything that's showing.
Or get the
Right.
dragonfly hat. That's what
Yeah, I'm gonna go to the Shark Tank website.
Yeah,
check
I'm-
that
no,
out.
I'm-
I'm sure that won't look weird.
No, people won't, your neighbors won't talk about
But
you
I mean,
either.
it is a struggle, like,
Yeah,
to
oh yeah, I'm
figure
sure.
out.
Well, you gotta remember, it's a never-ending battle. And there's
And
not
I
gonna be
use those
one,
mosquito buckets, which work really well,
Yeah.
until the squirrels tip them over, like, every day.
you just need a bigger bucket.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
So I was gonna ask you about that, if, those mosquito buckets,
Yeah.
because I've been using them, are they effective? Because
They're
it's a-
effective, like I talked to a group, I guess 2 years ago, was that?
Yeah.
From Burtonwood?
Right.
Yeah, so that was 2 years ago, and they got all together and they got those buckets of doom or whatever, and I was like, I wouldn't do it, but because I know how people are. People will, they'll be particular about it. They'll be on top of it for a month or two, and then they forget about it the rest of the summer, and they just sit out there and crank
well,
them
I have a
out.
service, and when the squirrels don't dump it, it works.
Well,
but
you have a
the
service for
problem
that?
Yeah, they have, there's one company in Charlotte that I found that does,
Oh, okay.
they
Yeah.
have these buckets, and there's like 4 of them or 5 of them in my yard.
Yeah.
The problem is that the squirrels
You
dump
could probably do
them.
that yourself.
Yeah.
See, I've never had that happen.
Yeah, big, heavy butt.
I did that for the first time this last year, and I asked the pest company, do you have an option that doesn't spray? Because I don't want to kill the other insects in my
Right.
yard. Or does it discriminate? Just against mosquitoes? And she said, yes, the buckets. And I noticed a slight difference, slight improvement, but it was expensive.
It's expensive.
It was what,
It's the,
$80 a
it's the
month?
same
What?
cost as spraying.
Yeah.
It did, I used it this last summer was my 3rd year. The first year I used it, it was very effective. I didn't have mosquitoes till probably September,
Hold on, let's see.
which was extraordinary. I could be outside for 3 hours and not get bitten in the middle of the day. But I don't know if like the raccoons and the squirrels found them. I would put heavy rocks on top, they'd be dumped, the lid would come off, and then that defeats the purpose because then whatever the solution is has been diluted. So I just,
Well, they're so inexpensive to make, they're just in
You
this.
can- yeah, I mean, I guess that might-
5-gallon bucket.
Well,
I
you
mean,
could.
right?
Yeah.
these are
Every
these
month I'll
buckets
do
of
that
dirt
in your house.
where you just like put the mosquitoes in.
Oh.
Is it with the mosquito nets? Little dunking things?
What I've gotten are the mosquito
Yeah,
dumps,
yeah.
it's like a disc.
Yeah.
And you can even like.
Break them.
Break them off.
You use like a quarter in one bucket, that'll be fine.
Does it work?
Oh, yeah.
On the internet, something called a crumbly version of that.
Yeah, the
It's called
bits.
mosquito bits.
It's the same thing.
And, yeah,
But
it's
the
the
main
same thing as it's
thing,
BT.
But
Alright.
you can just, I even put some in the flower pots, saucers, I just sprinkle it anywhere. with
Yeah.
it.
Well, so I guess that would be my question about my leaf cover. Could I sprinkle these bits?
No.
No?
That stuff is just, it's for water.
Okay.
Because it's just getting the larvae.
I don't think I don't think they'll go into leaves.
I swear,
They
I
could-
have
they-
no standing
yeah.
water.
Yeah, but your neighbors might.
Yeah, but they all spray.
Yeah, but you know, they're crafty. And you gotta
So
think.
this is on Amazon right now for $8, a dragonfly hat clip.
There you
So there you go. So
I'm gonna buy those.
It's cute.
Yeah.
yeah, it's adorable. Cute little kid in the picture too.
Hayes the intern.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Make them wear like 30 of them while
Yeah.
they walk around. and
Yeah,
see
I'll do different colors and see which one works better.
Yeah, and then report back next year.
Yeah.
What about the wigglers?
What are the reviews?
The what?
The wigglers,
Oh, to keep the water moving? That's fine. Yeah.
Or maybe I just need those predatory larvae. And
Yeah.
I'll just stick those in my buckets.
Yeah, they're good. I would use the BT. I would use those little darts.
If fish ponds do this, don't the fish eat the larvae?
Yeah.
Well, so they'll keep it pretty clean. So if you have a koi pond, no problem.
Right.
Yeah, you said abandoned koi.
Yeah, abandoned koi ponds or mainly like frog ponds or
Oh, yeah.
After the heron eat all the koi, then you
Yeah.
get
All right, well, let's hear your work
Okay.
now.
yeah. So this is sure.
By the way, it's a
I've heard
3.1 out of 58 reviews. 3.1 out of 5.
I've heard, you know, we're big on getting rid of English ivy, and that
Yeah,
I've heard it said that the mosquitoes will lay their eggs under the ivy.
I can see that, yeah.
The ground is moist.
if it's gonna hold water
But there
eventually,
has to be standing water.
Right.
But they won't just lay it in like just mud.
they would if they know it's going to fill up,
It's gonna fill up.
like in a low area or like a swamp or like the side of a bucket.
Okay.
I mean, we set little traps to collect eggs. We put a strip of like planting or seed germination paper in there, and they'll lay. You can pick it up a week later, and it's like a little line of eggs all the way around it. I mean, they're tiny. Yeah.
So are you familiar with thermocell?
Thermocell? Yeah, those little things you like clip to your belt.
Well, yeah, or they just have a little contraption that you can set on the ground.
Oh yeah, I think my mom has one. of those.
Yeah, I mean, I find that works, so I think it's got real good reviews.
Yeah, if it works, it
Yeah,
works.
but what's good about that, you have to be stationary. Like, I put out 15 minutes before I'm gonna go sit out and have a glass of wine. And then I go out and stay there, and I'm fine.
Yeah,
Can't see how the ones you clip on your belt work, because it says, you know, it creates this 15-foot perimeter circle that's protected
no.
after 15 minutes. Yeah, I don't know, but it's, a lot of people use it.
Yeah, I don't know. I just stick by repellents and see. I don't use repellents because I know I'm going to get bit no matter what. Because I'm out there all day. I sweat it off.
At least you get paid to get bitten.
Yeah, true. I know the interns get paid to get bitten, right? So get out there, so don't come back. But yeah, so what we do in Mecklenburg County, we're targeted towards the whole county. We service the whole county, as you can imagine. And we do this through many methods. We identify and record larval and adult mosquitoes that we collect in the field. And we do hire interns. So if anyone has people that want to be mosquito interns this summer, we're hiring $20 an hour.
Is there
Yeah.
an age minimum? Is it high school, college, what age?
Yeah, you just need a valid driver's license.
Oh,
Yeah. They will do a background check. And I think they let you be at least 18. No. But generally we try to hire 10 interns, but the past few years it's been difficult. But anyway, so we go out there and we try to find larvae and adult mosquitoes, and we collect them for identification. We also survey and record mosquito breeding areas such as ditches, drains, floodplains, and this is actually, Quail Corners over.
Is that the big ditch?
Yes. I didn't. This is an old picture. It's beautiful back there.
They started developing it, I don't know.
Oh God.
20 years
Then it
ago,
stopped, yeah.
Never got anywhere, and it's not, I wish they'd just make a park out of it.
That's kind of Well, I think the Harris is still on it.
It's just got a tatty
Oh.
sort of barrier around its fence.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like some fancy development, but that never happened. So we also eliminate breeding sites if we can. We really don't really drain or flood or anything like that anymore, like flooded fields or anything, because it requires a lot of permitting. But we will fill in some potholes. I will flip over containers till the cow comes home instead of, waiting on a homeowner to do it, because a lot of times I can do it faster and the problem's solved for now. But this is generally what we see. Buckets and containers, the bane of my existence. We do implement biological and physical controls to kill mosquitoes. So these are kind of some of the things you see at like the hardware store. And these are kind of all the same. Yeah. Yeah, that's something like you said you could sprinkle in like a flower pot basin.
What about a bird bath?
You could put like one of these in there.
Really?
Yeah.
And it's safe for the birds?
Oh yeah. It's safe for bees too.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, my thought on that is you probably ought to be changing out that water.
That's yeah.
Every single,
Anyway.
I change
Yeah.
it every single day.
Well, I tell people to
check
I tell people to change about 3 or 4 times a week, so maybe that way they'll do it
I
once.
do it every day.
Okay, then you're fine. You don't need that.
Yeah,
then you don't need that.
Or if you have like a fountain that's running,
Yeah.
But it only kills larvae, it doesn't,
yeah, like maybe black fly larvae, some of them, but
but it doesn't,
Who cares about them?
like sterilize the female mosquito or anything.
no,
Okay.
no. This is it. Just
That's
kills.
what those buckets claim to do.
Oh, okay. Well,
No, the buckets just claim to kill all larvae.
okay.
It attracts the females. The one I.
Oh, yeah, it'll attract them.
Sterilizes the female too,
That's
yeah.
a service?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can fill a bucket. It gets. I have buckets that I set out and don't treat to call them in so I can collect them to test for, and I just throw leaves in it and it gets so funky. It smells awful. By the end of the summer, it's like something died. But
Don't tell your neighbors.
oh, I keep it at the office. Don't worry. Yeah, don't worry. Way back in the back, actually. So we don't usually use any. Well, I guess we used to use a chemical called methoprene, which is a growth regulator that would stunt larval growth, but we haven't used that in a while. We conduct larviciding. We have about 11 or 1,200 mosquito sites throughout the county. From you could have a ditch just as long as this room to a 4-acre low area in the woods that holds water. So we try to get out there and survey those at least 3 times a summer and treat where need be, with the help of interns. So again, $20 an hour. If you know anyone, please send them my way. We just need to walk and chew gum at the same time. So that's kind of what we do. We also do educational outreach like this and things like that. I've done things with like summer camps that the county has in the summer with little kids. That's always fun and a little, as you can imagine, interesting sometimes. We have brochures that we hand out, and we've done radio spots in the past or TV interviews and things like that. We also respond to complaints and requests for service from people like you about swimming pools. I've gotten contact about ditches, basic things like that. I got a complaint on Lake Norman one year. It was great. Yeah.
On the lake.
Yeah, I didn't go out to that one. Yeah.
Spend all day looking at that.
Yeah, they didn't give me a boat. Like, what was I supposed to do? If I get calls about like tire shops or things like that, or my neighbor has a jillion flower pots outside, I'll go handle that.
Are there statutes that obligate people to keep their property, in a better condition than that?
Yeah, so there,
Fines or something?
right, so we do have a health ordinance with mosquito control, and we allow them to they have options. They can either get the pool up and running, expensive, empty the pool, fill it in, expensive, or they can alter the water so it doesn't control mosquitoes. So we will provide that service for them. We have some products that'll last like 180 days in the water. So it's a lot of times these houses are vacant or abandoned. The owners are, or it's in probate or something like that. You know, they're hard to find. And I always recommend people to, you know, if they have a HOA, because sometimes they'll have more teeth than we do. Yeah. And a lot of times pools like this, even, so they don't really breed a whole lot of mosquitoes sometimes, because they almost revert to a pond where you'll have frog or, you know, tadpoles and frogs and dragonfly larvae that are fairly predaceous towards mosquito larvae, diving beetles, stonefly larvae, all sorts of stuff. So
One thing I will throw out there, and you're probably familiar with this, we had a tree damage to our roof a couple of years ago, and we had a dumpster in our driveway for 5 months. And all the spring rain that we were getting, those real hard rains, I didn't realize it had filled up with water.
Oh, fun.
We couldn't even go outside. It bred so many mosquitoes, and I kept wondering, why is it so bad? Until they came to remove it, and they tilted it, and all this water came flying out.
Oh.
And I realized, so you see dumpsters where people are doing renovations or whatever, they fill with water. They actually hold water. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we do. This is kind of, so we also use oils for surface to sit on top of the surface with standing water. And what the oil does is it'll sit on top of the water, and these mosquitoes right here are, you know, breathing through the siphon. In the middle, it's a mineral oil. Actually, one we have a new one. It's based with like coconut oil. It's called Cocoa Bear. And it sits on top, and they can't get through. They're siphoned to get through to breathe, and they die a slow, painful death, which is good. And generally, those last about 5 to 7 days, if it doesn't rain.
What kind of oil is it?
It's right now I have one barrel left of a mineral oil, and the other one it's coconut oil based. And we
Is it specifically sold for this kind of purpose?
It is, and it's pretty effective. It's a quick acting, but it doesn't last long. So if you have, let's say you go to a place where you have a lot of pupa, and since like the pupa don't feed or anything like that, you don't really, it's going to be hard to use a bacterial-based product because they have to ingest it most times. So that's when an oil would come in handy. And it's quick, and I use this a lot on pools. Sometimes pools are cranking out mosquitoes. I will use the whole arsenal on a pool, so because it just knocks it down.
How thick a film's like for a certain amount of square feet?
Yeah, so generally it's like I think it's like about a gallon an acre, and you can see it spread out. Like when you spray it on there, you'll see it. It just goes across the water, it like glides, and you can see how far it goes. But generally that's like a ditch and like basic things like that. We don't really put that in like obviously places where there's fish or frogs or the water's moving, or giant like 2 acre low areas or things like that, or containers. But it works pretty good. And we also use BTI products and BS products, and we also use another product called Natural. All these are synthetic biological, like, bacteria spores. And what it does is it will release the spore in the water, which are in turn ingested or absorbed by the mosquito. Natural BTI, I think they had to ingest it. This other one we have Natural, I should have brought some, I forgot. They can either ingest it or it absorbs in the mosquito larvae. And it gets in their gut and it causes them to rupture. So when I have like a tire pile and I have some granular, I have a product that's based with both of these, it's made with both of these, I'll put it in there and I'll come back in like 2 weeks later and you'll see all these like mosquito larvae broken in half from their gut ruptured. Pretty cool.
And BTI, that's what's in those mosquito dunks, right?
Yes, and there's another one in there too called Pre-Strike. In like Lowe's or wherever, and that's an Alticid, that's a methoprene-based product, that's a growth regulator, which works pretty good. It just stunts them when they emerge into adulthood, they're just like dead. So, works pretty good. We have a lot of formulations. We have like these little granular things we saw. We have 90-day little briquettes, like little cubes that last like 90 days. We have 180-day briquettes that last like that long. And so I like to use the pellet, like this, like the size of a fertilizer, and I have like a backpack blower, and I can just go out there and, you know, treat 2 acres in 20 minutes. So that's good, instead of, you know, doing it by hand.
So, and it says applications can be made whether water is present currently or not.
Mhm.
So, like, I know people have rain gardens, and
Yeah.
they only contain
Yeah.
water when it rains. Can you like pre-treat your?
Yeah, I have some places that I call, or that call, I have frequent flyers, so to speak, the people that call me.
Right.
Like, well, it's getting that time of year, and so I have like this. The one that I have is this granular, lasts 60 days in water. So if I go out there when it's dry and treat beforehand, that's good.
Okay.
And it'll last. Sometimes it'll last. I think it lasts 4 floodings. It's layered like kind of like a jawbreaker.
Right.
So yeah, I do pre-treat.
And you do that for, like, if a resident calls and says, can you come do that, or how does this work? Okay.
I don't know. No, yeah, of course, yeah. I respond to all citizen complaints.
Okay.
I got a call a couple years ago. It's like, oh, my neighbor has a motorcycle tire in their backyard. I'm like, okay, go talk to your neighbor. But yeah, I mean, we respond to all complaints. So, well, I do.
Right.
I'm the only one in the county that does this job,
Right.
in my interns. But yeah, we respond to any citizen complaint, and we get out there and survey those treatment sites we have too.
Right.
But yeah, I got some. It just depends on what you have out there is what I'll use. It's case by case. If I know, like, I can tell it's going to hold water, I will put stuff in it.
Okay. And is any of that stuff that consumers can buy?
Yeah, you can buy BTI. BS, I don't know as much, because normally we're buying this in like 50-pound bags.
Right, but I know, like, the mosquito dumps don't last 90 days, for example.
No, but you can get, I mean, depends on what you're using it for. Like, you can break that up if you put it in like a bucket or like a, you know, one of those mosquito dunks is going to treat 100 square feet for 30 days.
Right, yeah, no, I break them up.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
yeah,
thinking,
yeah.
like, for something where you said where the water doesn't have to be present, and then if it floods like a rain garden or whatever,
Yeah.
is that a product a consumer can buy, or you just use mosquito?
I would use mosquito dunks or mosquito bits, and you got to keep in mind that water's got to be there for 7 days
Oh,
to
okay,
complete
yeah,
that life
that's-
cycle. Because
yeah.
if it's laying in their eggs and those mosquito larvae hatch out and then it dries up the next day, and they're toast.
Oh, okay. then
Yeah, we're not
okay,
worried
then
about
it's
it.
not a problem.
We're only worried about if it stays there for longer than 7 days in peak season.
Okay,
Because you'll see like low areas out there now that are holding water, and then you go by in July and they're dry as a bone, which is great.
okay, all right, the 7 days I wasn't aware of.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
But yeah, I do pre-treat with this stuff. It's great. Okay. We used to use Alticid, which is a growth regulator, but we don't really use it anymore. There's no reason why we don't use it. It's pretty safe and effective. And they actually have products now called Metalarv, which is a methoprene and BTI kind of hybrid, I guess you could say. I've never used it. Mainly we use the big briquettes that would last 150 days for swimming pools. But we haven't used that in a while. And we also used to have gambusia fish or mosquito fish. We used to have a tank that's older than I am. Huge tank, probably about as big as that table that they used to breed these things in. Apparently it was a 24-hour, 365-day-a-year job. Apparently it was awful. But we do have some mosquito sites throughout the county that have gambusia, or like ponds. And sometimes I'll go set a minnow trap out there and try to get some and throw them in places that I think need it. But they work pretty good. It's like a guppy, and I think it lives naturally in highly polluted waters. So. But what we don't do is we don't use any spraying or equipment like that. We do have some. We don't use it. We got a grant and they want us to buy a new one, which we needed a new one. And the main reason we don't use it is because, or have the need right now, is because Mainly, like I said earlier, we have the main mosquito problem we have is going to be through Aedes albopictus tiger mosquito, which is daytime active. And a lot of these ULV machines, which are actually do great jobs, require to be used at night when you have the air temperature cooler than the ground temperature. So you also get an inversion. And it's hard to get it where it needs to be, and as you all know, a lot of people are opposed to any type of spraying whatsoever.
What exactly is in those sprays?
It depends. Which ones?
Well, just what's, the folks that are going around the neighborhood with those sprays?
They use different things. I mean, it's whatever. I mean, there's a vast number of chemicals, but generally those are like a backpack fogger.
Yes, I've seen them do all the
Mhm.
same thing. The neighbors are doing it. My concern is, what else is it killing? Is it just indiscriminately killing every bee?
It could be. It depends on what they use. Now, if they're using something like bifenthrin, yeah, that's gonna knock down everything. You're not gonna have a mosquito problem, that's for sure.
And the thing is, we
But you're
have
not
no
gonna have
idea
everything
what's
else.
in this stuff.
Yeah.
It's
Well, they should
like-
have. You can always ask for a label. They should have a label with
Well,
what
I
they're
don't use
using.
it, I'm.
Well, they should. Whoever's applying it should have a label with them.
I went up and asked one of them one day,
Yeah.
he got a little squirrely, but it worries me, I'll be
Yeah.
honest.
Well, they should be. They should have a license. They should be a licensed pesticide applicator through the state, or working directly under one. And it should be
may be perfectly legal doing
Yeah.
what they're doing, I'm just saying, it concerns me that it is such an indiscriminate killer.
Oh yeah,
Other
it's
insects.
nuts.
Yeah.
You see like one company, like whatever, mosquitoes, whatever. Then like 3 years later, it's like everyone and their brother.
Right.
So yeah, but yeah, and the only reason we would ever spray, we would spray with a truck-mounted ULV machine, which is a totally different ballgame. Where you're using like an ounce of product per acre and a half at night.
Right.
That's only going to kill mosquitoes flying. Would be through a public health emergency where you had such a high incidence rate or number of disease
Yeah,
where it would be declared.
sure, I get that.
And if it got like they do on the coast or down in Florida, well,
Yeah,
they have contracts with the state to do aerial spraying down there. Well, we do through the whole state, but
yeah.
if we don't have that problem here with disease. Knock on wood.
Yeah.
So we
I
don't,
get
and,
that,
it's,
just,
and there's a lot of permitting involved with it too. Or there was. I don't know if they got repealed or not. So, but that's we haven't done it in years. We used to have an old truck-mounted ULV machine. It had more mice in it than. It's probably 40 or 50 years old. Yeah, we finally got rid of it.
yeah.
But that's kind of what we do. We provide that larval control for standing water only. Respond to all your complaints. You can call me.
Oh, we called you about our neighbor's pool.
Oh, which one?
Over in Ravenscroft, over in Mint Hill. It was a rental and their pump went out. It was near winter though, so you guys said, well, you talked to the owner and you weren't too worried about it over the winter. I don't know if you guys called or who they called,
Probably.
but it's
There's
not a
someone.
problem anymore, but it was nice to have it done. Somebody came out.
Yeah.
It was good.
It's cool.
I can't remember who they called.
I get probably about 3 or 4 pool calls a week in the summer.
Right.
It's awful. I hate it.
No, it solved the problem, which is all we needed, so it's been nice.
You're welcome. I did reckon. But so that's what we do. And yeah, I don't know. Does anyone have any questions?
It's weird. I garden. I love. I'm already out there clipping and cleaning and carrying on. So I'm around all the leaves and everything. I'm not getting bitten at the moment, but
No, I'm
usually
not.
around next month, the first couple of little bites I get, but plenty. The first bites I get will be big welts, like
Yeah.
a big reaction, welt. And then the rest of the summer, it's just the little small welt that goes away, 24 hours later. And I'm thinking, what's with this? Is this an immunity thing?
I have
Do you
no
get a little
idea.
bit immune to them after a while? Or
No, I
what?
mean, it could be the species maybe if you have a bigger species. Because
I
generally,
usually get them like close to my belly. So, like if I've got a loose shirt, they might fly up the shirt, hit me on my belly or something like that, but they're much bigger welts.
That sounds like a chicken.
Well, it goes.
Yeah, it could
goes
be,
away.
yeah, something in the grass or something.
Oh, maybe
just-
it is. I thought it was a
They
mosquito.
crawl up, and if you've got a loose shirt, they go up.
Oh, I thought it was a mosquito flying.
Could be.
Okay.
I've had them fly on my ears, on my nose.
So looking
Have you
down the
been-
road, is there any hope for like something coming down the road from science that's more, mosquito targeted, that's a spray? Anything like that?
Well, most ULVs like they're like provided by like an aircraft or truck mount sprays.
Yeah, where they.
Those are fairly. I mean, you're doing that at night.
And so
I mean, that's only, they've done studies where they put them in a cage and they'll drive the truck by,
Right,
and the bees alive and the mosquitoes are dead. I mean, it's just like a small part.
right.
I mean, these are bacteria. And there's some counties that'll do like a spray in a truck with a larvicide. They can, apparently you have to rig the sprayer and you have to have some wizard. I don't know. And they can drive it with the larvicide and just drive down the street and it'll put out the larvicide and it'll fall in the bucket or wherever's holding water.
Right.
So they say. I don't know.
James, we really appreciate it. You have another question?
Yeah, I did. When you talked about leaf debris, that made me very nervous because I keep, to my leaves.
Yeah, but does that,
and
mainly
they
like,
definitely
yeah.
are moist underneath.
No, that's fine. It's standing water. So I'm talking about like a low area they'll lay.
That's not gonna be a breeding source.
No, they might hang out in there after they hatch.
Yeah, they like to hide there.
Yeah, that's why I tell people like, if you live next to someone that has a jungle for a backyard,
Yeah.
you're gonna have a lot more mosquitoes than you are to have like a neighborhood where they torn down, 30 acres of it. It's just nothing. You have houses that are this far apart and like a 4-foot tall crepe myrtle in the front yard, and that's your tree. You're not gonna have that. They like that cool environment where it's, the underside of a leaf, where you get that microclimate where it's humid, you got the humidity, the cooler temperatures. They like that. So like,
That's not like I was using around the garden.
no, I mean, they could be like, if you have shrubs and things like that, they could be resting in there.
Okay.
And that's when, people will recommend like a barrier spray.
The one thing I really want to impress on everybody is, you talked about the bucket of doom, right? James had mentioned that in the neighborhood. The one thing that this really it requires is that you don't just take care of your yard, but you help your neighbors. The big piece that James talked about and the literature talks about is tipping over all those buckets, right? All the tires, getting your neighbors to throw away that tire, take it to the recycling center, they'll recycle that tire.
Yeah.
But what you do in your own yard is helpful, but it's somewhat of a drop in the bucket if your neighbors aren't kind of on board as well. So encouraging folks to go and get mosquito bits or get a service like what she talked about that again is going to go ahead and track them and deal with them in their larval stage as opposed to dealing with them once they're up in the air. When they're up in the air, it's arguably a little on the late side to go ahead and deal with it, right? That's when they're already biting. But if you go and set up a bucket and then you encourage your neighbor to set up a bucket or a tray of water and somehow get it squirrel proof, at least in your yard, you've got some industrious squirrels over there. But, that's a heck of a lot better solution, but it also, again, it requires you tapping your neighbor and gently talking to folks because nobody wants to hear that they're doing something wrong, but rather a solution of how you can do it a little bit better. But you get 4, 5, 6, 10, 20, 50 neighbors together, and everybody's got a little bucket that has mosquito dunks in it that lasts 30 days. And then you remind those neighbors, like James said, doesn't help if you do it for 30 days and then you don't. Because
That's a problem because it's easy to forget.
yeah. And then
That's
you
why,
get
I mean, if
really-
you get a whole neighborhood just to not have any buckets or containers at all, you wouldn't need the buckets of doom,
Right.
but that's never gonna happen.
But dealing with it on a much bigger scale is going to be certainly a whole lot better. Anytime you want to chat about this kind of thing or a way to talk to your neighbors, be glad to go ahead and talk with you. Feel free to reach out to me. James, thanks so much. It was
Yeah.
great information.
Good job. Yeah, like I said, when you have any problems this summer, you see anything, if your neighbor has one motorcycle tire, I'll still come out.
To contact you?
Yes, I can bring or he has my contact information, or I can give you my cell phone number. Yeah, you call 311. My work cell phone number, don't worry. I have that with me for better or worse all the damn time, so. But yeah, and I'll come out. So, but if you see like a source or something, or like I said, if you have concerns about someone in your house, in your neighborhood that starts collecting tires, or, what else? Washing machines, or they're a hoarder, I'll deal with them. Huh? I try to. They don't, you know what, they're stubborn.
Or if you live in Charlotte, you can call code enforcement.
Yeah, we call code enforcement. But I don't know. I've dealt with some for the past 2 years, 3 years.
It's sad.
Yeah. They got a bunch of plants though. Potted plants that they bought them and just set them out there. So.
Thanks so much for coming out tonight.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.